touchdown. And he flips the ball to Rowdy to do with what he will.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Showtime Fantasy Podcast. I am your host, Showtime. And we are going to get into a lot of NFL stories across the league, guys. We got injuries galore. I guess it's an old school thing because when I write things down, it's when you memorize things, in my opinion. I didn't end up taking that practice to the classroom in college. I was one of the shitty students in the history of Montclair State. But, had a lot of notes today. So there is a lot to get into. Just making sure I'm like, damn, all right, this player got hurt, this player got hurt, that player, this happened. And it's almost been damn near 2 weeks. So I apologize about that. But we got a lot to discuss. We got a lot to talk about. And to be honest, looking at this sheet, I don't even know where to start, but let's not waste any more time. I guess what we'll do is we'll kind of go into these injuries that recently happened and then talk about the impact on the team. Now, I guess one of the bigger stories we'll go down to New Orleans and talk about the injuries that they've recently suffered to Alvin Kamara and Jordan Tyson. Alvin Kamara with a sprained MCL. He'll be out a couple weeks. That won't affect him that much because they signed Travis Etienne, who now goes by Travis Achan. This, like the Miami running back, is the same thing. I don't know, but that's what he goes by now. Everyone changes their name now. So, you call yourself whatever, just like you change your gender, you change your name. But, Alvin Kamara, he's out for, a couple weeks. Not that big of a deal. But really the bigger loss for New Orleans is losing their first-round pick, Jordan Tyson, who, when I watched him on Game Tape this past year, he really reminded me of George Pickens. He had that ability, that type of ability. He had the speed. He had some separation for a bigger size guy, and he was outstanding with contested catches. And I thought, man, you pair this guy up with Chris Olave. You got something cooking there. Juwan Johnson, I think, is an up-and-coming tight end, even though he's, a little bit, he's 27, 28. He's a little older than me. I think he's a year older than me. But he's still, I thought he proved himself last year to be one of the better tight ends in the NFL. They have some young offensive linemen that are getting a little bit better. And then second-year quarterback Tyler Shuck. I thought, hey, you're cooking with something there. But unfortunately, losing Jordan Tyson is going to be a big, big loss. And, going back to the draft reports, and part of the reason that I never ended up putting him on my dynasty board, which, by the way, if you guys are drafting dynasty still, or if you obviously want my redraft rankings, head over to Patreon, scan right there. You get my draft rankings, redraft, dynasty, the draft guide, where I could basically take a 5-year-old and walk him through how I redraft, my philosophy and whatnot. It's literally, I truly believe that a kid could understand this, guys. So if whether you're a novice or you're an advanced player, I think my draft board will definitely be an asset to you come draft day. So head over there, check it out. But when I was looking at the medical reports for Jordan Tyson, I saw that he was hurt every single year he was in college with bad knee injuries. He had a shoulder as well. And it's just like, damn, I can't trust this guy for dynasty. But I saw the talent. I said, redraft, I'll take a swing on him round 6. And then he got a little hamstring. And it's like, we'll put him down a couple rounds. And now that he's going to be out 2 months, I've lowered Jordan Tyson all the way down to round 11 in redraft. And I still would take a dart throw at him in the late rounds just because of his talent and the amount of upside that he has. And I do believe, getting that number 2 role in the New Orleans Saints offense is a productive role. I mean, there's a lot of upside there. And I think this Saints offense can be something this year with the second-year combination of Kellen Moore and Tyler Shuck. But with a hamstring, it's an injury that just doesn't go away for a lot of receivers. I mean, I'm, as a Cowboys fan, I saw back in the day with Miles Austin, he had the hamstring injuries and it just never went away. And that kind of goes for almost all players. I know everyone's different, but if you're a receiver, you need your hamstrings healthy. I mean, there's really no way you can kind of work around not having a hamstring, especially when you're relying on your speed and running every single play. I mean, they're going to shut him down for 2 months, but to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if we get to October, which is 2 months from now, and they go ahead and just say, yeah, we're going to redshirt him this year, just to preserve him for long term and not re-aggravate that injury. But round 11 right now is, I'm probably moving down even a little bit lower, to be honest with you. The more I talk about this out loud, that's kind of where I am with Jordan Tyson, and it totally sucks. It absolutely blows. I knew Saints fans are devastated. Saints front office personnel, coaches are devastated. But I was excited to see this guy for fantasy. I didn't have a lot of stock in him just due to these injury concerns. But the little bit of shares that I did have, I'm like, hey, I want to see how this kid is, because I thought on tape, I mean, outside of what's his name, Carnell Tate, I thought he was the best receiver in the entire draft. So absolutely blows from New Orleans. Two losses. Kamara, I think they'll be fine with that, but Jordan Tyson is going to be a big loss for the Saints. It does provide a slight upgrade, a very slight upgrade for Chris Olave. I think you can put him in that conversation damn near the 2-3 turn early round 3. And also a slight upgrade on Juwan Johnson as well. But overall, this really isn't going to help the Saints offense at all. This is a big loss. Next on the list of injuries that I think are big, today we found out that Houston Texans wide receiver Jaden Higgins, a second-year receiver from Iowa State, is going to be out for the year with a torn ACL. And he wasn't really a player that was an impact player last year, I would say. It took him a while to come on. I mean, the first 8 weeks of the season, he was a dud. He had absolutely nothing. And this year we had him around, I want to say, round 10, round 11. I mean, I didn't really have a lot of stock in Jaden Higgins this year, but I had him on my board. Really, I was more excited to see and I guess I'm even more excited now to kind of see what the future of Tank Dell is. I mean, this is kind of like going back to 2023 at this point, where Tank Dell's going to be that number 2 receiver, and we're going to, he's going to have to play this year and make an impact, because boy, oh boy, is CJ Stroud in absolute trouble. I mean, when you look at CJ Stroud in 2023, I've said this on multiple episodes of doing this, and whether it's just a fantasy or a football, whatever it is, I've said this multiple times about CJ Stroud. I mean, it's no secret. On 2023, everyone was getting him he was getting his inseam fitted for a gold jacket in Canton. I mean, he was getting ready to get inducted into the Hall of Fame after that rookie year. Everybody was, oh my God, CJ Stroud is the next big thing. And he's done nothing but regress. And I'm not going to lie, last year he looked like garbage at times. I mean, and then it all kind of came to a steaming halt in that playoff game versus New England, where he threw 4 interceptions. It just looked like an absolute shell of himself compared to his rookie year. Now, I think there's multiple factors for that. Number one, defensive coordinators, they catch up on you. They get the game plan out on you, and they say, oh, he has some weaknesses here. And, they spend all offseason watching these young quarterbacks and thinking of ways to beat them, especially if, you're coming up on their schedule of opponents. They're gonna try to, do what they can to, figure out ways to beat you. And I think CJ Stroud, he has yet to kind of come up with a counterpunch to some of these ways. I don't know what it is. If I'm being honest with you, I'm not savvy enough from a coach's perspective to tell you what, but I just know that as a trend. I mean, you could look at Jaden Daniels. He was on top of the world rookie year. Looked like he was going to be getting fit for his jacket in the Hall of Fame. And this past year, I know they're dealt with a lot of injuries, but he was nowhere near the same player. I think that really what separates the good and great quarterbacks in this league from the average quarterbacks is the ones that are good and great. They have years and years of consistent high-end performance, where, a lot of these young quarterbacks that come in the game, they have one good year, one little good sample size, and a lot of people in the media just kind of start, riding their D, if we're being real, pumping them up and gassing them up like they're the next greatest big thing, blah, blah, blah. And they get slapped back down in reality because, a lot of coaches catch up to them. But anyway, I think, that's partly number one. Number two, the offensive line has not been good in Houston. I mean, they traded away Tunsil. Something happened in that offensive line room in between 2024 and 2025, 2020. I don't know if it was which offseason, if it was last one or the previous one, but they just purged the entire offensive line room for some reason. I don't know what the hell happened. But point being, it didn't help CJ Stroud at all. He was nowhere near this, that didn't do anything to help him. He was nowhere near the same player from 2023 to 2024. And then I think a big reason why is they his buddy Tank Dell has not been out there since 2023, and well, he was out there briefly in 2024, but he really wasn't the same player because he was playing injured. And he's a player that he's a small player, which is why you're always going to worry about his durability. But man, that guy is explosive. He's shifty. He's a pain in the ass to cover, and he gives you a second option of Nico Collins. I love Nico Collins. I have Nico Collins. I'm higher on Nico Collins than anyone. When it comes to consensus, I mean, I've had him at a 1-2 turn for the last 3 years. This year, previous year, and the previous year before that. I mean, I love Nico Collins, point blank period. This year, I kind of have him more now that I think about it. I'm still higher on him than consensus, but I have him more mid to second or mid to late round 2. But that's still higher than consensus. I mean, I just think he's that much of an alpha receiver, but you need another guy. I mean, there's no offense in the NFL that's just running through teams with just one wide receiver. I mean, whether it could be the tight end as the second guy. I mean, I don't really think, Dalton Schultz is he doesn't scare anyone. He doesn't scare defenses. He's slow. He's soft, in my opinion. I'm just, he's kind of whatever to me. And I know that's kind of me being the bitter Cowboys fan, but I've seen enough of him. He's no threat whatsoever. But Nico Collins absolutely is. But they have to have another guy. Last year they drafted Higgins and Noel to kind of be those guys. It took both of them a while to get going. They really never did. Higgins, you saw a little. I thought the last 6 games or so, you saw a little bit of him stepping up, having some 4 and 5 catch games, grabbing some touchdowns because he has that similar size speed profile to Nico Collins. So it made him attractive for fantasy, but it took a while to materialize. And then they also, they went out and they traded for the most overrated receiver in the NFL, Christian Kirk. And that didn't do anything at all. He barely did anything last year. So the point being, Texans, they desperately need a threat opposite Nico Collins to get this offense going and to revive CJ Stroud's career, which is kind of crazy to say, but let's not forget, guys. I know DeMeco Ryans wasn't going to do it because I think he knew that it would kill his confidence. But there was talks within that Houston building that, hey, do we bench C.J. Stroud? I mean, it got to that point last year, and then especially in that little stretch when Davis Mills was coming out and slinging the ball all over the place, and it was like, oh my God, he actually looked really good for a little bit. And they were like, yeah, I don't know if we really want to go back to C.J. Stroud. Maybe we just put him on the bench. I mean, that was a real conversation in that Houston Texans building last year. But I think DeMeco, he shied against that because he knew if you do that, you're going to kill his confidence, and you can't kill a quarterback's confidence. So I don't really know where the Houston Texans offense goes this year. They're really a team that they got it all on defense, and adding that defensive tackle McDonald from Ohio State, I think they're going to be even better on defense this year. They could very well be the number 1 defense in the NFL, but offensively, it is not looking good at all. I know they traded for Montgomery, so that'll give him and Woody a 1-2 punch, but that offensive line isn't great to begin with, and the passing game is just whack. It's whack as hell, and I know a lot of blame is on the quarterback, but I will, as much as I've given C.J. Stroud a lot of grief, I mean, he really hasn't had much assistance. I know he got young Bobby Slowick fired, but aside, I mean, you're looking around at the personnel. I mean, when you're trading away your offensive lineman, you have all your number 2 receivers get hurt. It's going to be hard to move the football, and then not to mention as well, the entire incident with Joe Mixon last year, that didn't help matters at all. So it just, I don't know where we're going to see where Houston will go this season, but I think they're going to either have to bring someone in or Tank Dell is going to have to come back and really be that player that he was his rookie year in 2023, which could very well happen considering it's a contract year for him. Or this offense is going to be absolute poop. So we'll see, but big loss for Houston because that was the guy that they pinned as okay, we'll have Higgins on the outside of Collins and then we'll have Tank Dell in the slot. Tank Dell can still do that role, but you need another guy outside. I mean, it's just going to be too easy to kind of roll the coverage over. So that's that with Houston. And then last injury, very significant too. the Chargers lose Tyler Biadasz for the entire season, and that's a big loss. I mean, Tyler Biadasz wasn't the world's greatest center, but I mean, I know him very well from his time at the Cowboys. He's a little undersized, but he's a reliable player. He's a smart player. He's one of those old school Wisconsin offensive linemen, even though he's, he's 26, 27 years old. I mean, he's not saying that like he's an old player, but the Wisconsin offensive linemen, they're trained like on a farmland. They're like old school. That's how they're trained there, and it's why they produce a lot of big time players over the course. Travis Frederick, I think Joe Thomas is from there. I mean, they've had a lot of Pro Bowl offensive linemen come out of that school. I mean, they're not really about a lot of the modern ways. They're kind of like, hey, we're hitting the sleds every day. They just go through a lot of old school training, but I like it a lot because they've turned out a lot of good players in the league, and Biadasz is one of them as well. And he had a couple of decent years with the Deadskins before they let him go, or I don't know if they let him go or his contract expired. But the Chargers brought him in to be their starter, and I thought, hey, that's perfect for them. They don't need to have the world's greatest center, but they need to have a solid center because their tackles are really the strong point with Slater and Alt. And most importantly, they needed a guy that would enhance the communication and synchronization on that offensive line. A lot of times watching the Chargers last year, I mean, Herbert can, make all the checks and whatnot, but there was a lot of pre-snap penalties. A lot of guys that just weren't in sync. There were so many different combinations last year that affected that. That time they just looked like the offensive line just wasn't right. I mean, I'm not an offensive line guru. But I mean, just watching that, you guys know football. If you watch the Chargers last year, you had Chargers players, Hampton or Herbert or whoever. I mean, I think we all had at least one Chargers player in some league. That offensive line was not good at all. They drafted Slaughter in the second round. They signed Biadasz, and then they're getting the tackles back. That's why I was so high on Amari and Hampton, because I'm like, wow, this is a proper offensive line. And on top of that, with Justin Herbert, his biggest problem is once he gets hit, he's not the same player. And, I don't want to call him a soft player. I do think he could be a little bit, I don't want to say he needs to, be running around like a maniac like Jackson Dart, but I do think he needs to be a little bit more like a 6'6", 250 player, which he is. I felt like there's times when you could hit him over the course of a season, the course of a game, he can kind of shy away. He can kind of just, tuck his tail a little bit and not be that same tall, confident quarterback that you see when he's not getting hit, where it's like, this guy, when he's playing confident, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And I think Jim Harbaugh knows that, and, Jim Harbaugh knows that, like, hey, I'll work on that with this guy and make sure this guy is solidified from left to right on the offensive line. And, he over the two going into year 3 for Jim Harbaugh, he's spent a lot of investment in the offensive line. I mean, Alt was his first pick there. Then he has Slaughter, and then they signed Biadasz. Slater's been there for a while. They extended him. So it's very important for them. But losing Tyler Biadasz, that is a killer loss. Now, it doesn't mean the season's over and the Chargers offense is a fade, because, another strong point of this Chargers offense is bringing in my boy, the goofy Mike McDaniels, where he's kind of back in his role this year. Last year he was miserable. You could tell he was just, couldn't wait to get fired from being the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, just because it wasn't fun anymore for him. I mean, if you saw him with the 49ers and then his first couple of years in Miami, he was goofing around, making jokes, skipping along the sidelines, smoking weed during the playoff game. I mean, it was all fun and games for him. And these last couple of years, it's been absolute hell trying to manage that circus of a locker room. And combined with, being the head coach of Miami, you got to deal with a lot of distractions, a lot of players going to the strip clubs and, getting in trouble off the field. And, it's in Miami, we got a lot of money in Miami. It's a lot of fun out there. So it's hard to keep everyone on the same page. So now he's back as an offensive coordinator, where all he has to do is draw it up on the chalkboard, which I know they don't do that anymore, but you get the reference, draw it up, scheme it up, call it, install it, and just worry about the offense. And I think he could do a very good job of that. I think he's going to do a very good job as an offensive coordinator. One of the strengths of Mike McDaniels was the fact that he had the ability to, kind of protect Tua as much as possible with a really bad offensive line in Miami. I mean, there's a big reason Miami, they went out and spent that first round pick on Caden Proctor, the big tackle from Alabama. I mean, that offensive line was not good in Mike McDaniel's tenure there, and a lot of that relied on getting the ball out quick on screen games, slants, flat, throwing to the flat, and just trying every way. I mean, they were drags. I mean, every way possible to just get the ball out of Tua's hands as quick as possible. And the one advantage, I think, is if, it comes to a mess with this Chargers offensive line, he can kind of go back to that game plan, those game plans, and say, hey, we can do this with Justin Herbert. But I think he knows, and Harbaugh knows that, like, hey, Justin Herbert is not Tua. I mean, I know they were picked right next to each other, but they're not the same player. Justin Herbert has some big-time ability that Tua does not have to save his life. I think Herbert is just more of a mental game. But, Herbert can make the deep third throws. He can stand in. He can roll out. He can make throws on the run. And when he's confident, he could fire what I call some piss missiles. There's some throws that he can make that are like, whoa, this guy is, you could see why. At times emphasize at times, he looks like Josh Allen. And I know that's a stretch, but that's why I say at times, because that's not all the time. So, overall, I guess to kind of wrap this point up, Chargers players, I'm still on them. I'm still on Hampton. It'll be a slight bump down on everyone, but I'm still on all the Chargers players just because I think there's a lot of upside, and I think Mike McDaniels is going to be a very much an upgrade to Greg Roman in this Chargers offense. So sucks that they lose Tyler Biadasz, but it's only a slight downgrade going forward, just because I think he can kind of cover up and patch up some of these holes. Let's see where we move in next. I guess we're going to get into some free agent signings across. Some of these are non-fantasy, some of these are fantasy. We'll kind of run through these real quick, and then we'll get into some headlines that I wrote down, and then a couple reactions to some of the preseason games over the weekend. But number one, Von Miller to the Cowboys. Just real quick, my take on that. That's like bringing in Mariano. You're bringing in Lee Smith. That's all Von Miller is. He's the closer. Okay, you put him on the side. You really just want him as a locker room guy. It's really not fantasy-wise, doesn't matter. But he's a locker room guy at this point. And he's the guy where you put him on the sideline for most of the game, and then when you're up by 7, you're up by 4, you're trying to close the game out, sack the quarterback, you get him in there to rush the passer. That's really all he is at this point of his career, and that's fine because you're not paying him anything. So I'm totally cool with that. He has 2 Super Bowls. I think one of the things with the Cowboys is as much as it kills me to say, the truth be told, there's nobody on that team that's won a Super Bowl. I mean, you have to have, I think, to get to a Super Bowl, you need to have a player on your team that knows what it takes to win a Super Bowl. And that is what Von Miller, he has 2 Super Bowls on his resume. So I think that sort of pedigree is necessary. And I'd really like the addition a lot for basically pennies on it. You paid him like $5 million. That's pennies. So totally fine with that addition. Next, Aaron Donald is, I know he's not signed yet, but he appeared on the transaction report that he worked out with the Rams. Aaron Donald is returning. Breaking news, guys. I'm not Ian Rappaport, but I'll tell you, he's coming back. Okay. Now, why has he not signed yet? Because he doesn't want to do training camp. He's 35 years old. He don't want to do that crap. He wants to sit there and run around and, hit people. I mean, Aaron Donald just wants to work out and play football. He's probably one of the only players in the NFL that has the ability to I don't need training camp. I know you guys probably follow or seen Aaron Donald on some of these Sports Center highlights or whatever of what his workouts are like. Honestly, it'd be fun to see him pair up with Diamond Jim and see how that would turn out. But, Aaron Donald is just a freak of nature. So he doesn't really need to do all this training camp stuff. He's one of the few players that he could just throw him the pads on September 7th and go run out there and play with no practice whatsoever. He's that much of a freak in nature. Obviously, the opportunity to pair up with Myles Garrett is something that's appealing to him. And there's already been videos of him at the facility. There's a picture of him at the facility with a helmet on. I mean, unless he's pulling the biggest prank of all time, I mean, it's pretty obvious he's coming back. He just doesn't want to do training camp. So here you have it on August 19th from Showtime. Breaking news, which if you guys will notice, if you honestly, if you go back onto Spotify, you can see some of the older episodes. We call stuff before it happens. It just doesn't really, since I'm not on the NFL Network or the Worldwide Leader, it doesn't get out there and nobody cares. But we will break stories before they happen. I mean, you can just all you got to do is connect the dots a little bit here. But yeah, breaking news: Aaron Donald is coming back. Now, one thing I will mention before we move on, I see a lot of people in fantasy, they're going to be reaching for the Rams defense in the 11th and 12th round. And guys, we don't draft defense. We don't draft kickers. Okay, we go by the matchup. And if you guys, again, want to know, what are the matchup? Well, follow on Patreon. Okay, you'll get in-season rankings, write-ups, stuff like that. Where I will tell you what defenses I'm on for the week that are on the waiver wire. I spent a lot of time, believe it or not, on defenses. Now kickers, I don't give a shit about a kicker. Okay, they're not real football players. I mean, to be honest, most leagues I play in, they don't even have kickers anymore. But my thing is just have a kicker that's in a dome. That's really my only prerequisite. Make sure he's not playing in rain or snow or any of that crap. But when it comes to the defenses, we don't draft defenses. We just kind of look for the defense to tease off on the bad quarterback. Even though the Rams are going to have all that firepower or whatnot, it's just not worth the 11th round, 12th round pick when we could pick, a rookie receiver with a lot of upside or something like that. And that could be a game winner for you, or a league winner for you down the line. So point being, don't draft defenses at all. Even though the Rams, I get it, Aaron Donald, Myles Garrett, oh my God, but no point in drafting them. Real quick, I saw today as well, this is kind of funny, that the Seahawks signed Trayvon Diggs. Remember last time we had a little funny bit with the Diggs boys. I was actually going to put that on TikTok, but I was making a fool of myself doing a humping motion. And for what it's worth, I would like to, I don't want to say keep it G or PG, because it's very hard with the cursing and stuff like that. And I'm trying to work on that. But, that's why I didn't want to put that out there. But we had a little funny bit. If you guys watched the last episode about, the whole Trayvon Diggs, the TV fell on his head, which it did fall on his head, but there's a reason why it did. And it wasn't because he was installing it. But if you guys want to know why, go back to the last episode and watch. But he signs with the defending champ Seattle Seahawks. It'll only take a couple weeks for Seattle to realize that he is cooked. His knee is cooked. He didn't rehab it properly because he was screwing around in Miami with doing God knows what. It's part of the reason the Cowboys ended up cutting him. And he's just not the same player. And the player that he was 4 years ago was an all-pro player. And since he got hurt in 2023, he's just never been the same player. So Seattle will find that out quickly. They're just bringing him in. It's a cam body, and the Packers found that out quickly, which is why they didn't even bother bringing him back. So Seattle will find out as well. One signing now. This is back to fantasy relevance. Keenan Allen signs with the Colts, and you look at this Colts receiver room. It is absolutely horrendous. Oh my God, it is horrendous. Let's pull it up real quick. If possible, but they had to sign a receiver. They had absolutely nobody in that freaking room that could be anything. Alec Pierce has, he has nothing in terms of participation. He hasn't participated in anything this entire offseason. And, it's August 19th. When is he going to practice? He hasn't practiced all offseason, and the Colts gave him a big contract. Excuse me. So I know they're not stoked about this at all. I mean, Chris Ballard, he is probably going to be looking for work next year, if I'm being honest with you. I mean, I guess we'll call that another prediction, but you look at a lot of his miscues over the last few years with the Anthony Richardson pick and the Sauce Gardner trade and giving Pierce $100 million. I mean, there's a lot of bad decisions that have been going on. You throw in, dumping A.D. Mitchell for nothing, I think he'll regret that as well. That's not looking good at all. And, they're basically left with nobody. I mean, Josh Downs, my boy Josh Downs, who I love this year as a 7th round pick. He's a good player, but he's a player you want as your number 2 option. And nothing against, I literally love Josh Downs. I have to root for him even more now because of his brother being on the Cowboys. But I mean, Jesus, he can't be the only guy. And you look at the rest of the receivers. I mean, Ashton Doolin, who's been there for 5 years, he's a special teams player. Westbrook-Ikhine is a nobody. I mean, he's bounced around Tennessee and Miami and just been blah at best. He's been barely a waiver wire ad for fantasy. Anthony Gold, I don't even know who that is. Laquan Treadwell, are you kidding me? He's still in the league, Laquan Treadwell? I mean, that's incredible. And then Deion Burks, who I like a lot, but he's nothing more than a slot receiver. He's going to be Josh Downs' backup, if anything. So they had to just get a body in there. And then, funny enough, today, literally a couple hours ago, before I turned on the camera, Tyler Warren is hurt. So it's like, Jesus, man. I mean, this Colts receiver room is an absolute mess. They trade away Pittman for nothing, which I think is just more about getting his contract off the books, and I don't really blame him. Pittman, to me, was never really a difference maker at receiver for what he was making. And, A.D. Mitchell, they're going to regret that, man. I mean, that dude is special. And I know that's saying that word is a stretch, but I just love him that much as a prospect. I think the Jets got a steal there, picking up 2 first-round picks and A.D. Mitchell. And, you lose those guys, and Pierce has just hasn't played. So they are very, very thin in receivers. So point being, how does this impact fantasy? I just think it gives them a body that they need. I mean, I don't think it's like stealing volume away from Warren or Downs. Those guys are already going to be the forefront of guys to get the ball. I mean, you just can't have Ashton Doolin as your number 2 guy or Westbrook-Ikhine. Those guys aren't even qualified for number 3 or number 4 jobs in this league. If those guys hit the waiver wire, nobody would pick them up. If Ashton Doolin was cut today by the Colts, nobody would sign him. Nobody would sign Westbrook-Ikhine. Nobody would sign Anthony Gold. So you just had to get somebody in there that was competent to at least look on paper okay, there's a guy we have to at least respect. So ultimately Tyler Warren is the number 1. Now we'll see how serious that groin injury is that he suffered today. Hopefully not too serious, because I had a good amount of stock in him. And Josh Downs also came up with a couple of days ago with a small injury. It doesn't seem to be a long-term injury. He'll probably be back in there in a few days, but he's not going to miss week 1 or anything like that. But, still, I mean, it is just an absolute joke of a receiver room for the Colts. And then, Chris Ballard, I mean, that's going to cost him his job, in my opinion. So, absolutely insane how, you could have that as a team builder and just not have any receivers in the 2026 NFL. I mean, that's just incredible to me. I don't understand that at all. Anyway, moving on, let's get into, how about we get into this? I was going to talk a little bit about Minnesota Vikings real quick. We're not going to have to go through the whole breakdown like we did last time. But they ended up naming Kyler Murray the starter, and we predicted that last time. I mean, unless Kyler Murray came in and shit his pants, he was going to be the starter. That's no surprise. He is just, when Justin Jefferson comes out, and I know people kind of gave me grief because they said, oh, you twisted the quote. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to lie. I twisted the quote. But guys, you got to read between the lines a little bit here. Players and coaches are not going to attack each other. Okay, even if there's a disgruntlement or I don't even know if that's a word. If somebody's disgruntled, there's beef or something, they're professionals. They're going to go out to the media. They're going to say the right things, and then behind closed doors, they're going to hash it out like men. So, Justin Jefferson, even though he's pissed off, he's not going to throw his teammate under the bus. He's smart enough for that. And there's PR staff in the building that coach these guys on what to say when they're probably telling them the real answers that they want to say. And they're telling them, like, hey, why don't you say it like this instead so you don't come off like a dick. But when Justin Jefferson, when he says, like, oh, yeah, we needed a spark in that room, that's basically translation. Shit, I would take anybody. I would take the garbage man, the janitor, over J.J. McCarthy. Just give me anybody else but J.J. McCarthy, because I can't go through another year of J.J. McCarthy. That's basically what he said. So Kyler Murray was going to walk into the starting role. And, this media frenzy that was going on in Minnesota with, a lot of these analysts, which, guys, I mean, when you read a lot of these practice reports from these analysts, they don't really know what the fuck they're looking at. I mean, they think that they've been around, like they know more than us. And I'm talking about us, the football fans. They really don't know any more than us. They've never been in the building. They've never been scouting. They've never been coaching. Like me, I've always said I'm an armchair scout. Okay, I'm an armchair scout. I've definitely you can accuse me of backseat driving, armchair scouting, and that has no professional certification or qualification to be a talent evaluator. But I just think hey, I've won some leagues. I've, called some things before they happen. I've made a couple, or if you want to call them friends, I've made a couple connections in, media just from hammering the phones and reaching out multiple times on DM to some of these guys. So I built a little something for myself just off, love of the game. But, I'm nothing more than an armchair scout. But, when it comes to this, I mean, these reports from Minnesota were coming out saying that, oh, JJ was killing it and JJ did this and Kyler Murray threw up on himself. And I think Kevin O'Connell was probably reading these things like, all right, we need to name Kyler Murray the starter just to put all this crap to bed. And, maybe those guys are right, but I doubt it. I really do. I mean, JJ McCarthy's killing it. Like, I don't really see that. And Minnesota Vikings, I don't really think they know what definition is that. The definition of, quarterback doing well is when last year, check out some of these statistics. I wrote this down. Last year in the 8 losses they had, they only had 8 losses, still incredible. In the 8 losses they had, the quarterbacks, JJ McCarthy and Carson Wentz, threw a combined 5 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. I mean, holy shit, is that bad? That is embarrassing. And, JJ McCarthy last year was one of, if not the only starting quarterback. Excuse me. I ate a cookie before I went on here, and that's coming up. But he was the only starting quarterback, I think, to play all the games or most of the games that threw more interceptions than touchdowns. I mean, unless you're, rookie Peyton Manning, or you're Eli, where you can get away with that. That's not good. So, yeah, Kyler Murray was a shoe-in starter. But, I've already broken down Kyler Murray as a player, what I think of him. We'll see how he does. I think he could do well in September and October because, Kevin O'Connell's going to do his homework for him so he can go at home. He could stay at home all night and play the PlayStation and enjoy his time off. And Kevin O'Connell will do everything for him. But I just think, even with that, he's going to get hurt. I mean, it's happened every single year he's been I don't think he's ever had a season in the NFL where he didn't get hurt. And Buddy Ryan had a famous quote that said, there's always a spot in the NFL for the little man. It's just not in front of the big man. And Kyler Murray, his problem is he's always in front of the big man. So he's always going to get hurt. And that's not just being sinful and wishing the worst on him, but it's true, guys. Every single year he's gotten hurt. So that's not like just me being negative Nancy. It's literally factually true. So I'm sorry I got to put it like that, but it's the truth. Anyway, moving on. This is funny. When asked in the offseason about taking on the Cleveland Browns head coaching job and what the challenge might bring, Todd Monken said that he relishes the challenge. He can't wait to take on this job, which he's lying to himself. He took the job because it was the only head coaching gig left, because nobody wanted that, because nobody wants to work for Jimmy Haslam, who's a fucking moron, and his wife Dee, who's just as much of a moron, and they're both involved, and they got the Moneyball dude involved and all this other crap with all these guys that don't know football. They're all involved at the round table making decisions on players and drafts and free agents and in the coach's room. I mean, it's an absolute shit show. So he was lying to himself, saying he relishes in the challenge. And now we have we have some incidents of proof that he is, definitely not relishing the challenge. This is the second time. Yesterday was the second time that Todd Monken stormed off the field and ended practice early. 9 days ago, on August 10th, Todd Monken threw his radio and halted a 2-minute drill after the first and second team offenses committed a flurry of pre-snap false starts and procedural penalties. He later owned up to the outburst, admitting he got emotionally hijacked. Well, when you work for the Cleveland Browns, yeah, that's probably going to be the case a lot of the times. I mean, I don't think that's the first time he was quote unquote emotionally hijacked. And proof is, it definitely wasn't the first time, because it happened again yesterday. Todd Monken abruptly ended practice 15 minutes early and stormed off the field after the defense grew too chippy. He kicked defensive end Brenton Whitley and defensive tackle Aiden Huntington off the field for aggressive hits, followed by a final straw when defensive end Jared Verse knocked a guardian cap off of Quinshon Judkins' helmet. Monken then delivered a harsh warning to the team before shutting down this session. So an absolute shit show going on in Cleveland right now. No surprise. I mean, there's just it's just a horrible culture. It's like the worst. I mean, and something that was really, I thought, going to a positive progression with Kevin Stefanski when we first got in there. I mean, you remember the COVID year? It's like he fixed everything in Cleveland, and they thought like, oh man, we're gonna get this, 2021. They said Baker wasn't so good, we'll let Baker go, and then they made the worst decision of all time, turning the keys over to Deshaun Masseuse Predator Watson, who's done nothing but be a fucking embarrassment to the NFL, the franchise, and just a complete embarrassment, and has done nothing but sunk that organization into 6 feet below of dirt. And poor Stefanski got fired with it. I mean, luckily he got another head coaching gig with Atlanta, which isn't too much. It's not that much better of an organization. I think it's better than the Browns. At least with Arthur Blank, you're not dealing with a complete moron. You're dealing with a guy that's just a little too nice to everyone. So you could kind of maybe possibly work around that. But nobody's wanted this job. I mean, Cleveland is just an absolute shit show. And then add on, Shedeur Sanders, who has, grown a lot of frustrations. And to be honest with you, I've seen it in the media that Shedeur Sanders, and we talked about this last time, that, they saying he's got a bad attitude, he's not handling things, but he knows in his heart that he's better than Deshaun Watson. I mean, it's very hard to I'm not watching Browns practice, but I mean, assuming Deshaun Watson is the same player he's been the last few years, which is an absolute bum. I mean, I'm being polite saying that. I mean, I think that quarterback Brady Cook from the Jets last year might be better than him. I mean, he was terrible. I honestly think he might be better than Deshaun Watson right now. And Shedeur, he's got to be better than him. So, I mean, to sit there and just kind of, suck it up and act like it's not happening and go out there and quote unquote be a pro. I mean, that stuff's got to get absolutely tiring for him. And, he's just been nothing but, kind of kicked to the curb a little bit. They try to pin Dylan Gabriel as a better player than him. And I wasn't the one that said Shedeur Sanders is a first-round pick and all this, but I didn't think he was a fifth-round pick. I thought he was kind of a day 2 player, and I thought he was a better player than Dylan Gabriel, who has one of the weaker arms I've seen in a long time. He honestly reminds me of Tua. So I think he's a better player than him. But, this Browns, I really worry about this Browns just overall. I mean, it's shaping up to be a really poor season with a team that has a ton of skill players and a ton of fantasy players that are relevant. I mean, really good skill players. I mean, you look at Harold Fannin, a 22-year-old tight end. who can do it all and is just so versatile and has a potential to be a mismatch nightmare in the NFL for years to come. You know, they have the 2 rookie receivers, Concepcion, who's one of the most dominant yards after the catch receivers that I've seen in the last few years, and Denzel Boston, who I'm not going to lie, I watched his Washington tape again about almost 2 weeks ago, like really right after the last pod. And man, I was impressed, man. He's a very clean prospect. He's one of those guys that's just very well-rounded, and I think he could be an impact player this year. And you know, I definitely think I'd rather have him in the lineup than someone like Jerry Jeudy, and Tillman and those guys. I mean, I think those guys can easily take all their jobs. And then you factor in the running backs. I mean, Judkins Soda, he could be a bell cow running back, and Dylan Sampson is one of my favorite picks this year in fantasy. I think he's just a young, explosive playmaker. I know we're talking about very young. He's just turned 22 years old. So there's a lot of skill, a lot of upside with this Cleveland Browns offense. But man, oh man, I mean, this quarterback situation, the way the culture is, you know, Todd Monken, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a head coach so frustrated in training camp. Like, this is like, you know, like Mike Singletary with the 49ers level of like frustration of just lashing out and shit. I mean, that's got to be like, I mean, I don't think this is what he signed up for. I mean, Todd Monken probably had a little bit of easier, he definitely had a little easier of a job trying to turn around Southern Mississippi or whatever that college was that he coached 10 years ago. He probably was an easier job doing that with no talent whatsoever than it is turning around the Cleveland Browns. So, wow, I mean, this is just an absolute shit show. So, something we're going to follow, something we're going to keep an eye on, and definitely, you know, nonetheless, it's pretty entertaining. But let's move on to some preseason reactions from a couple of the games that I watched over the weekend. Probably the game that I was tuned into the most was the Raiders and the Cardinals, because you see a lot of the young rookies. You saw Mendoza, which everyone wanted to see, and then also we got to point out how you know, Mikey LaFleur again is being an idiot, and this is only 2 weeks into his coaching. Not 2 weeks, but 1 week. I mean, the Hall of Fame game, he looked like an idiot on the last play, not putting 2 spies on the running quarterback, and then this week he goes out and he plays Jeremiah Love for 14 carries. What are you doing, dude? Why would you play your star running back, the 3rd overall pick, who, I mean, all I saw with Jeremiah Love in practice with two videos recorded off an iPhone from some beat reporter, and he made like 8 guys miss. And I know it was like a shorts and t-shirt practice, but like literally the guys, they didn't even touch him. Usually it's, you know, in that sort of practice, it's a 2-hand touch at most, and, you know, they kind of just play tag essentially. But I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen that video where he like makes like 8 guys miss. It's like, oh, this guy's a real deal. And then, you know, you see the college game, like, you don't need to play that guy in the preseason. Just put him in bubble wrap and sit him out until the regular season. But Mike LaFleur wants to put him in the preseason and give him 14 carries. Why would you do that? I mean, that's just so stupid. I don't understand that. Like why? What do you need to see out of him? He doesn't need to be prepared at all. Running back is the easiest transition aside from punter and kicker from college to the NFL. It's the easiest transition. All you got to learn how to do is pass block, but running the football is the same, catching the football is the same, and if anything, you have an advantage because you have fresh legs. Running backs are cars. I've said this theory before, and that's why a lot of, you know, the recent with the analytics coming into being so heavily involved in this game is that, you know, you just go keep drafting running backs and you don't pay running backs. Which I'm not all the way to that end of the spectrum, but, you know, most running backs, yeah, they're replaceable because once they're used up, they're used up. And, you know, the key is, especially when you have a generational running back like Jeremiah Love, is don't wear him down early. Keep him on bubble wrap and use him in games when you have to use him so you can get like an 8-10 year career out of him. But you put 14 carries on him in a preseason game. Like, what the heck are you thinking? One of the stupidest. I mean, what the hell is he thinking, man? But it goes to show when you put, you know, kids, and I mean, he's like, you know, I know he's probably almost 40 at this point, but I mean, he literally looks like a 30-year-old. He looks the same age as me out there. I mean, he looks like a kid. But when you put, young, I know that we all want young and sexy as the head coach, but man, I mean, that is just, when you get that, you sometimes get young, sexy, and stupid. And that's kind of what it's looking like with Mikey LaFleur. He's got a lot of growing up to do quickly, because he's already making a fool out of himself in the preseason. 2 times he's making a fool out of himself. This one was way worse than what he did in the Hall of Fame game. Hall of Fame game was like, all right, come on, dude. Like, you got to learn your game management, and you'll get it over time. But playing your star running back 14 carries in a preseason game, and then funny enough, he gets hurt. I mean, you almost deserve that. I feel bad for Jeremiah Love, but I mean, for the Cardinals, you deserve that. You deserve him getting hurt, because you're a fucking idiot for playing him in the preseason game that doesn't mean anything. You don't need to see anything out of him. So anyway, I had to get that off my chest, because that is just absolutely ridiculous. But going over to the other side with the Raiders, obviously all eyes on first overall pick Fernando Mendoza. It was funny, one of the first observations with Fernando Mendoza, I don't know if you guys saw that podcast with him on the Bussin' with the Boys with Lawan and Compton, but they had him and Kirk Cousins on the podcast, and he sounds like he's like, it honestly sounds like and I'm sure we're all guilty of this. You guys, more than ever, people are chatting with AI, trying to use AI to make life decisions, which is fucking nuts, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm guilty of it as well. Chatting with AI about, drama in your own personal life, and they always give you the smiley, agreeable response, and that's honestly what it looks like every time Fernando Mendoza is. It looks like he's powered by Gemini. Maybe he's got like a chip in his head or something, but as corny as it sounds, he sounds like a good guy. He says the right things. He takes accountability. Even when he had a decent game, I'd say. I mean, it wasn't spectacular, but he said, "Hey, I could be a lot better." And he's saying all the right things. So you like to see that. Being from that program in Indiana with Kirk Signetti, I mean, it's a highly accountable program, which is, I think, a big reason why they won the national championship is, this wasn't a program of superstars. I mean, they had, big players on NIL deals and whatnot, but, it wasn't like Bama and Ohio State where it's all about the stars. Everyone was the same in that team. And I think that was built towards that championship culture. But, Mendoza's obviously raised his class act. Overall, as a player, I'd like to see him. I really like to see, it's kind of lost art. I like to see him under center. I mean, every time, when I watched him in Indiana, he was on the gun like 90% of the time. And the reason I say that is because when you get under center with what the Raiders have personnel-wise, number one, the key for the Raiders this year, they got to get, this offensive line has got to get way better, and I think it will. I mean, like we talked about last week, the impact of signing Tyler Linderbaum from the Ravens, to that big contract. He's a Pro Bowl center. He's going to make a huge, huge difference. They can move Jackson Powers-Johnson out to guard, which he might be a little bit better at. They're going to get Colton Miller, their left tackle back, who's been a Pro Bowl tackle as well. So they're going to have a lot. It's going to be a very, very improved offensive line. And probably the number one thing for the Raiders, obviously their pass game was horrible, but they were the worst running team in the NFL last year, which is kind of incredible considering, last year they thought when they drafted Ashton Genty at 5 overall, they said, "Oh, we'll be one of the better running teams in the league," and that wasn't anything but. It was a fucking miracle how Ashton Genty was able to get almost 1,000 yards behind that crappy Raiders offensive line. Yeah, I mean, it was even more ironic because he had like a 140-yard game versus the Texans, which is one of the top defenses in the NFL. I wrote this stat down. Ashton Genty had 70 carries last year go for 0 or negative yards. 70. That's a lot of carries with no gain. And this year, I think if you can get that with that new offensive line, if you were to get some 12 personnel under center with Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer, you might be cooking with something there, because then you can open up the play action game and just make it really easy. But, Mendoza, he needs to kind of be coached on that footwork that it takes to, at the NFL where it really matters, is you can't waste a single step or it can't be a malfunction at all. Coming to your handouts, to your rollouts, and anything under center, even your 3 and 5 step dropbacks, it has to be precise. So I think he'll learn over time, but I wish you kind of saw a little bit more of that, because I think if they got in 12 personnel, that would be a very good team with, Ashton Genty, who is the best player on an offense outside of, Brock Bowers. But the Raiders, they don't have any receivers. I mean, they brought in Jalen Naylor, but, that's not a real receiver. I mean, nothing against him personally, but, he was a third receiver for the Vikings. I mean, that's not a threat. Nobody's scared of him. Nobody's scared of Thornton. Nobody's scared of Beck. I mean, those guys aren't anything. So, if anything, I think the best thing they should do is put less receivers on the field and get more in 12 personnel. But aside from that, I thought he was poised. I mean, I like to see that. I mean, I think it's one of the more important things. Good outside the numbers, classic. He's just a classic pocket passer. I thought, which is okay. I mean, I think I want to see a little bit more mobility. I don't want to see him running around, like Jaden Daniels, but I'd want to see a little bit more mobility. But he stands tall under duress. He has good size, and he's able to stand and make the throws under duress, which is a very important trait. And that's really all I can say about him. I mean, I'm not a quarterback guru, number one, but number two, the regular season matters more when we see more exotic looks from these defenses. A lot of the looks that we're getting right now in these preseason games are just very vanilla. They're doing cover 1, cover 3, everyone rush 4. I mean, it's basic. It's very basic. None of these defensive coordinators are going to unload blitz packages in a preseason game. It's just stupid. You don't do that. So they're going to play close to the vest and just kind of see what they got personnel-wise and, just keep it vanilla. So it's very hard to evaluate these quarterbacks when it's very, very hard to screw up. I mean, I remember 3 years ago, I remember seeing Trey Lance looking like the next greatest thing in a preseason game. And that goes to show, how serious preseason games are. Moving on, we'll kind of finish off a little bit over in my neck of the woods in New Jersey. I know it's quote unquote New York, but both teams are run out of New Jersey, the New Jersey Giants and the New Jersey Jets. Start off with the Giants preseason game. I'm sure owner John Mara wasn't pleased to see Jackson Dart in the blue medical tent. When he's relying on him to kind of sell out the stadium that's been empty for the last 10 years. So that's not good. And, I've said this about Jackson Dart. I like the swagger. I like the confidence. I think it's something that was not present at all with Danny Dimes. And that was, that's something that I think it's really gotten the fan base. It's him and Scatterboo, who, I mean, everyone around here, especially in Jersey, where I'm in my area, Jersey too, man, with the the Italian guys and just pretty much every white Giants fan that I know. I don't want to bring race into this thing, but I think you guys know where I'm going with this. They all love Cam Scatterboo. They are Cam Scatterboo fans, man. They love Cam Scatterboo. They love Jackson Dart. They got their jerseys on. They love their crazy mentality, and they think it's going to carry them to a Super Bowl. I mean, we'll see if that really happens, but I will say this: I like Jackson Dart, but he has got to be more aware. He has got to understand that, dude. Your best ability is availability. Period. Okay, if Jackson Dart misses games, the Giants are not going to the playoffs, and they've already have an uphill battle to the playoffs. I think there's a lot of young talent on that team, but it's already an uphill battle for them to go to the playoffs. I mean, they have a lot to grow. They have a lot of growing up to do on that team, which is a big reason why they hired a veteran head coach in John Harbaugh. But one of the things with John Harbaugh, he loves playing starters in the preseason. He's all about winning the preseason, setting the tone for the season. And I think that's an outdated thing. I mean, most teams aren't playing their starters. And to be honest with you, if I was the head coach, I wouldn't give a shit about playing my starters either. The controlled practice environments when the teams kind of play each other in practice, that's really what you want to see, because those are the starters going against the starters. But those are kind of closed off and whatnot, and we don't really get film aside from beat reporters going like this on the phone. Which is crappy footage anyway. I mean, we don't really see anything, and they're sitting on eye level, which is not the way to watch football. You watch football from, 100 feet in the air. But, it's with this whole thing with Dart, I mean, I know the one play that he got hurt on, I mean, Tracy missed his block, and, you know, that could be the reason why they brought in Najee Harris to a 1-year contract. I don't know if they'll be putting him on pass blocking duties more now, but you know, I could honestly see, you know, I tell you what, I know John Mara was not happy to see Jackson Dart in the tent, and they wanted to point a finger at somebody. So poor Tyrone Tracy might have got sent to the doghouse because he missed his block. But I mean, Jackson Dart, he had absolutely no awareness that guy was coming when he was. I mean, he wasn't really looking at him, but I mean, he got clobbered. He was coming from his right side, and I didn't see. Luckily, I didn't see too much of this, but saw one play where he was trying to take on a linebacker, and it's like, man, I like how it gives the team energy when your quarterback is trying to take on players, but it's just so stupid. I mean, you got to grow up, man. I mean, trying to take on the linebacker in front of 60,000. I know we're trying to get the fans pumped up and all that, but if you get hurt, you're screwing yourself money-wise. You're screwing your team. It's just not smart, man. It's not smart at all. I know Cam Scatterbo, his buddy, is all about running through a wall and that stuff, but, you know, look at Cam Scatterbo. He's gotten hurt as well. I mean, those guys, I'm telling, if I'm John Harbaugh, I'm telling, hey, if it's third down, we need the first down, go ahead and do that, right? But we can't be doing that every single play. We got to play smarter. We got to play with the fact that if you're not out there, we're not going to win games. So that's something that I'm stressing to them overall. I thought once he came back on the game, though, you saw some things that, like, hey, man, there's a really good athletic ability with Dart. I mean, the off-platform throws, the throwing to his left, I mean, on that touchdown to Fields, I mean, there's some ability there. And I like to see, I really am excited to see him grow. Yes, even me, the Cowboys fan, I'm saying that I'm excited to see his year 2 growth. But you know, when he's running around like an idiot trying to take on linebackers, it's like, dude, you're not, I mean, I know you want to be a tough guy, but you're going to get hurt doing that. You're not big enough for that. I mean, nobody is really. I mean, you know, the biggest quarterback in the NFL right now, I believe, it's Justin Herbert, and he's 250 pounds, and he has gotten hurt multiple times over the course of the last few years from trying to do stuff like that. So, yeah, it's just not smart whatsoever. So I think that's something that they need to hammer down on. And lastly, we'll finish up with the New York Jets, which didn't really have too much of an evaluation from the preseason, but I will say, looking at this, I mean, they got a lot. It's kind of very similar to Cleveland, but I think, you know, Aaron Glenn in his second year is handling things a little bit different. You know, obviously there's a lot of frustration internally within the building, not only because, you know, you have Woody, but I mean, I think Aaron Glenn wasn't getting much help from his staff, which whoever, you know, I mean, if Woody doesn't know any better, but, you know, that general manager is a kid as well. I forget his name, but he's like 35 years old, doesn't know what he's doing. He's just trading for draft picks because, you know, that's what young GMs do. They love their draft picks. And, you know, looking at his staff last year, I thought it was ridiculous. I mean, it was a joke. I mean, to hire some kid as your offensive coordinator who's never called plays as a first-time head coach, you're setting yourself up for disaster. So they got that out of there because that was not going to work whatsoever. And then, you know, poor Steve Wilkes. I mean, he lost all of his players to trades. And, you know, Aaron Glenn was really trying to fight for him. And then after that one game where Sunshine threw like 7 touchdowns, so I don't know what, it was towards the end of the season. Probably Woody came in the next day and said, yeah, I don't think I've ever seen Sunshine throw for 6 or 7 touchdowns in one game in the 5 years he's been in the league. And that was the end of Steve Wilkes. So, where I guess I'm going with this for fantasy sake is, you know, this year they're going to have Geno, and, you know, Geno is last year not good. But when you look at Geno in 2022, 2023, it was actually, and even 2024, I mean, yeah, 2024, he won 10 games. Mike McDonald moved on because he wanted to, you know, go after Sam Darnold. But, you know, you saw, like, Geno can show that if you give him support, he can win some games and be a plausible quarterback. And in 2025, he probably had the worst situation. I mean, he had Chip Kelly, which we all know Chip Kelly wasn't that good of a coach in the NFL. Okay. He had probably the worst offensive line in the NFL. That's not good. He had the worst receiver room in the NFL. That's not good. I mean, he had Brock Bowers, but that's all he had. I mean, Ashton Genty was just getting clobbered behind the line of scrimmage on every single run play. So going from that to the Jets, where you got a decent offensive line, you have Fashanu and Tippmann and Membu, the tackle from Missouri. That's a decent. You have some building blocks on that offensive line. You have Sadiq as tight end when he gets healthy. Taylor's not a bad player, and then at receiver, the 1-2 punch of Garrett Wilson and A.D. Mitchell to me is going to be a very, very nice punch. So I really think Geno, and then you got Breece Hall in the backfield, who I ran into on South Street the other day. Shout out to Breece Hall. It was kind of funny, but all I said to him was, I need 1,500 this year. He kind of was like, all right, bet, and that's all it was. And I drove away. But it's not like I ran into him and got his autograph and had an interview with him. But I was just driving to move. I'll move on quick, but I was driving home and I saw a big dude with a do-rag, and I'm like, that looks like Breece Hall, and I'm like, oh, yeah. And I said his name, and he looked up like, what the fuck? But yeah, it's funny running into Jets players in Morristown. I'm trying to run into A.D. Mitchell and kind of give him a little bit of a, I don't want to say a wake-up call, but I want to tell him, like, hey man, don't screw this up. But Geno, I think he's going to be plausible to where he can support Garrett Wilson in fantasy, unlike last year where Garrett Wilson was literally suffering at the hands of his college teammate Justin Fields, who looked like absolute garbage. And I don't even know if Justin Fields, he is in the league. He's a backup for Kansas City. But Justin Fields, who really was never a good player in the NFL, he was just sinking that offense every single game he played, and then got to a point where I think that game in Denver, where that whole team was an absolute disaster because of him. I mean, Aaron Glenn lost his mind as a coach that game. He didn't even know what the hell he was doing out there. And this year I think Geno's going to be able to support him. A.D. Mitchell, I thought you saw last year when they put in that kid Brady Cook, that he had some numbers that were pretty impressive. I mean, he had a couple 100-yard games. He's more than capable, in my opinion, of being a number 2 receiver. So this Jets team that last year lost the last 5 games by 3 touchdowns, all 5 games by 3 touchdowns. They're one of the worst point differentials in the history of the NFL. They have a lot of growing up to do, a lot of improving to do. But I'll tell you what, this offense from a fantasy perspective, I think is I don't want to say viable. That's not really a word. But it's something that I think you could kind of point to a stock up compared to last year, because last year was so fucking bad. And I'm interested to see what it is this year, because I think it's very similar to Cleveland, where I think the skill players are awesome. There's a lot of young skill players on this team that could really be good players in the NFL, great players in the NFL at that. They've just been kind of suffering at the hands of bad quarterback play. So there you have it, guys. If you guys like what you heard and you want to get on the sign up for the draft guide. Scan it right there. Sign up for the draft guide. Dynasty rankings, redraft rankings that are getting updated almost every day at this point. I need to do another update due to the new batch of injuries that we got. But every day, every other day, I'm updating this thing at this point of the year. I'll probably be doing that for the next couple weeks at least, until like Labor Day is probably when I'll stop updating it. As long as these padded practices and these games are happening, this thing's going to get updated, because people are going hurt. Depth charts are changing and rookies are emerging and stuff like that. So this is another tool to add to your arsenal. I mean, you guys probably already listen to a bunch of other fantasy shows and football shows out there, and you buy their stuff and buy their rankings. Just add this tool to your arsenal. Have a master consensus sheet with everyone that you listen to. And that's how you can come to your own executive decision on who to pick in your drafts. And if you're just a novice and you're just starting out, I mean, literally, I hold your hand and walk you through as if I'm sitting there at the draft with you. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm going to say maybe Monday, Tuesday. Tuesday will probably be our next episode. I want to get this thing going on a weekly basis. Get some clips out as well. I'm going to get some streams going as well. We need to do some more underdog streams, which I have in the background here. I'm about to hop in and do a couple of drafts and probably update my rankings after that, just based off some of the drafts. I haven't done a draft in like, I'm not gonna lie, dude, I haven't done a draft in like a few days, at least damn near a week, just because I've been so busy with some of the work things, and then also trying to get the podcast up and running again to optimal levels. But fantasy season's here. Football season is here, guys. So lots to look forward to coming up. But I will see you guys very, very soon. Peace.